In one unexpected moment of opportunity, he took to the skies, performing barrel rolls before going nose down and calling it a night. My name is Adrian, and welcome back to Coffeehouse Crime. Now, this case is not part of my usual format, but it's good to experiment, right? So, do you know the story of Richard Russell? It's a story that brings both joy and sadness, and is one that a lot of us can relate to. By the way, I post both solved and unsolved cases here on a weekly basis, so if true crime is your kind of thing, then please consider subscribing to Coffeehouse Crime. So pull up a seat, grab a coffee and sit back. This is the case of Sky King. In today's case, we're heading back to America, to the city where I was born, Seattle. Officially nicknamed the Emerald City, Seattle is well known to the world for a variety of reasons. Initially establishing itself as a town predominantly focused to satisfy the timber industry, Seattle has transformed throughout the centuries to become a vibrant city, and is now home to over 750,000 residents, with an economy heavily geared towards the engineering and tech industries. The city holds a distinctive skyline with thanks to Seattle's Space Needle, a 605-foot spire built in 1962, which is enshrined with 360-degree panoramic views of forests and mountains, including the Cascades and the Olympics. And of course, you can never forget that Seattle was the birthplace to Starbucks, opening its first coffee shop in 1971. However, before we speak any more of this city, we have to go from one corner of the United States to the exact opposite, to the Keys, located in West Florida. It was on the 19th of September 1989 that a Mr. and Mrs. Russell would give birth to their son, Richard Russell. And weighing in at just over 9 pounds, Richard started his life large, something that would carry on into his young adulthood. He was the brother to 2 younger sisters, and along with his mother and father, the family of 5 would go on to enjoy the tropical climate of Florida, including its beautiful sunsets, palm trees, and if you're old enough, cocktails. But at the age of 7, Russell and his family would give up their sunny weather and move to Wasilla, located just outside of Anchorage, Alaska. Life here was understandably very different when compared to Florida, but the Russells made it work, and Richard himself would go on to attend Wasilla High School and become a well-known athletic student in the surrounding area. He was competitive in wrestling, and when it came to football, he was a fullback for the school, scoring 6 touchdowns in his senior year alone. Approaching the end of his teenage years, Richard, who by now had acquired the nickname of Beebo, was described as a young man who brought humour and unpredictability to people's lives. He was funny, extroverted, and even described as a handful by parents. At the age of 18, upon finishing high school, Russell, or Beebo, was scouted by North Dakota's Valley City State University to play football, and eventually he was recruited, moving himself from snowy Alaska to Fargo in North Dakota. Throughout his first year of playing for Valley City, Beebo was kept on the benches for most games. He wasn't a bad player, don't get me wrong, but he wasn't remarkable. And with that said, he had a hard time being given the opportunity to properly represent his skills on the field. Richard was disappointed in himself. He saw no road ahead with Valley City, and so with that in mind, he quit after the first year. But never mind, life is bright after all, and there were plenty of other things for him to do. So on that note, he decided to re-educate himself by enrolling into Southwestern Oregon Community College, located over on the west coast. Beebo was a religious man. Being a devout Christian, he attended weekly meetings at the Campus Crusade for Christ, where he would meet other like-minded students and help with good deeds around the community. It was in the year of 2011, during these events, that he first met a young woman named Hannah, and instantly he felt attracted to her. Feelings weren't quite the same for Hannah, but eventually she gave him a chance on a date. The two hit it off, and then fell in love. And just 1 year later, the two officially married, becoming Mr. and Mrs. Russell. The two then went on to open up a bakery together, naming it Hannah Marie's Artisan Breads and Pastries. Hannah, who was the master chef, had long ambitions to open up her own bakery, and Beebo was a laid-back and outgoing apprentice. Beebo and Hannah had great fun working together. Sure, there were hard moments, but they recognised that the squabbles were only natural. Instead, they learned to appreciate their difference in personalities in a work environment. But by the start of 2015, they had both eventually grown tired of their isolation from family. While Hannah's bakery was set up in North Bend of Oregon, their closest family was over 6 hours away in Seattle. Hannah found this hard. She wanted to be closer to family, and Oregon didn't really feel like home anyway. So by the time autumn rolled around, a decision was made. They sold their business and moved to Sumner, just south of Seattle. Their move to Seattle, which was Beebo's sixth place to call home, was an opportunity for him to explore and become himself. For the last 3 years, he had happily supported his wife build her own business, but he also had plans of his own. To use a soon-fitting term, Beebo's future was still very much up in the air. He had big dreams of one day becoming a pilot or a military officer, but in reality, he was nowhere near making those sorts of achievements possible. He lacked both the experience and educational training. But Beebo wasn't against time, he just needed plenty of it, and maybe third time in education would be the charm. And so, in 2015, Beebo enrolled into Washington State University to get a degree in social science, meanwhile picking up a job with Horizon Air. Russell would settle into his new job with Horizon Air as a ground service agent, which was based on over at Seattle Tacoma Airport, also known as SeaTac. As a ground service agent, he was a crucial member to a tow team, a coordinated group responsible for repositioning aircraft on SeaTac's apron in order to unload and offload baggage. In December 2017, a couple years since he had started working for Horizon Air, Beebo created and uploaded a video about his job on YouTube.
Hi, I'm Beebo Russell and I'm a ground service agent. That means I lift a lot of bags. Like a lot of bags. So many bags. Look at all them bags. Ooh, a purple one. I usually have to work outside in this. But it allows me to do some pretty cool things too.
Working for Horizon Air did come with its perks. He was often given the flexibility and opportunity to see various parts of America and the world. But it had its fair share of drawbacks too. While Beebo tolerated the work, he often complained about his conditions to family and friends. With thanks to Seattle's weather, he would often find himself in the rain, and his duties were repetitive, heavy, and exhausting, even for a man his size. But his biggest gripe was over his salary. SeaTac, which was under city jurisdiction, took pride being the first airport in America to raise its minimum wage past $15 an hour. However, the law had some awkward loopholes. Technically, only staff working inside the terminals were fully eligible for the new minimum wage, meaning that all staff working on the ramps and runways were not. This strange technicality of the law therefore meant that Beebo, day in and day out, was breaking his back in the rain for $12 an hour. And nevertheless, he put up with it and rarely made it a problem.
Most importantly, I get to visit those I love most. It evens out in the end.
Colleagues described Beebo as a quiet guy, someone who was well liked by the other workers. He was kind-hearted, often made people laugh, and was one to find beauty in everything. And although Beebo was known to goof around at work and at times be unpredictable, no one, and I mean no one, could have expected his actions on August the 10th, 2018. Welcome to SeaTac. Seattle Tacoma Airport, which is Seattle's largest commercial airport, has been open to the public since 1944, and it now serves over 50 million passengers and moves 500,000 metric tons of cargo every year. The date is the 10th of August 2018. The time is just shy of 7 p.m. Being in the height of summer, it was still bright outside, and the weather was as warm and clear as ever. Beebo was also working that evening. He began his shift shortly before 2:30 p.m. and had just come back from his break before returning to the airport's tarmac to report for more work. But colleagues of Beebo, who were expecting to see him sooner rather than later, couldn't find him. That's because instead, discreetly, he hopped into the front of a tow rig and drove 1 mile toward the north end of SeaTac's airfield, eventually finding his way to Cargo 1. Technically, Beebo had already breached his code of conduct. He shouldn't be here, and that reason was fully realised when entering the area, because right in the middle of Cargo 1, there she was, waiting for him. No, it was not another woman. It was a Bombardier Q400, registration N449QX. The aircraft had just completed her final flight of the day from Vancouver Island and was awaiting maintenance before shutting down for the night. The opportunity before him was apparently too much to dismiss, and probably much to his own surprise, Beebo, who had access to both the cargo area and the tow truck, began his jaw-dropping adventure. He boarded the Q400, fired up its engines, kicked off the wheel blocks, and hopped back into his tow truck. And once he had turned the aircraft 180 degrees around towards the runway, yes, he reboarded that aircraft. Air traffic control, who only noticed Beebo's aircraft as it reached runway 16, began to panic, repeatedly asking who was flying and what takeoff clearance they had. But their cries fell on deaf ears. Beebo didn't respond, and locked behind his own silence was his very own luck, because the runway was particularly quiet this evening, and the wind was blowing south. Perfect conditions for takeoff. At 7:33 p.m, Richard Beebo Russell officially took to the skies from SeaTac Airport, metaphorically taking his crown as the Sky King. And just after taking off, Beebo directed his aircraft southeast and began his flight towards Mount Rainier. Just 1 minute later, he made radio contact with ATC back at SeaTac.
Man, I'm a ground service agent. I don't know what that is.
I know how to fly one of those aircraft, but we'll see what we can do and get you in contact with somebody.
Alrighty, yeah, I just kind of want to do a couple maneuvers, see what it can do before I put her down, you know?
While flying around Mount Rainier, the turbulence, combined with his unprofessional handling of the aircraft, meant that he threw his lunch up all over the cockpit.
And so I can reach out to you a little easier.
A little bit.
I'm sorry, say that again?
Sorry, my mic came off. I threw up a little bit. You know, hold on. Shoot. Man, I'm sorry about this. I hope this doesn't ruin your day.
22, cross runway 16 left, contact. Just flying the plane around, you seem comfortable with that?
Oh, hell yeah, it's a blast, man. I played video games before, so I know what I'm doing a little bit.
Beebo then veered himself left towards the Olympic National Forest in hopes to take in some new views of Seattle's terrain.
Okay, and you can see all the terrain around you. You've got no issue with visibility or anything?
Nah, everything's peachy clean. Just did a little circle around Rainier. It's beautiful. I think I got some gas to go check out the Olympics. And yeah.
Okay, and Rich, do you know, are you able to tell what altitude you're at?
I threw up all inside of it. It's bad.
Mexico 494, Monitor Tower 1.
Tower, temperature did you want up?
Yeah, that's all mumbo jumbo. I have no idea what all that means. I wouldn't know how to punch it in. I'm off autopilot.
And by now, all aircraft was diverted away from Seattle's airspace to avoid any chance in colliding with his aircraft.
No, I'm not taking you to any jets. I'm actually keeping you away from aircraft that are trying to land at SeaTac.
Oh, okay, yeah, I don't want to screw with that. I'm glad you're not, screwing up everyone else's day. On account of me.
And ATC back at SeaTac then suggested to Beebo that he could try to land at McCord Air Force Base, located just south of Seattle.
There is the runway just off your right side in about a mile. Do you see that? That's McCord Field.
Oh man, those guys would rough me up if I tried landing there. I think I might mess something up there too. I wouldn't want to do that. Hopefully. Oh, they probably got anti-aircraft.
No, they don't have any of that stuff. We're just trying to find a place for you to land safely.
Yeah, not quite ready to bring it down just yet, but holy smokes, I gotta stop looking at the fuel because it's going down quick.
But he failed to take the suggestion. Simultaneously, it was at this point that ATC had fully learned that the pilot was Richard Russell. one of their very own grounds crewmen.
400 apparently is a grounds crewman with Horizon, I guess. Okay, Rich, if you could you start a left-hand turn, and we'll take you down to the southeast, please.
Shortly after, at 8:15 PM, two F-15 fighter jets finally caught up to Beebo. But they didn't fire at him. Instead, they tried to veer him away from downtown Seattle.
This is probably like jail time for life, huh? I mean, I would hope it is for a guy like me.
Well, Rich, we're not going to worry or think about that, but could you start a left-hand turn, please?
Nah, I mean, I don't need that much help. I played some video games before. I would like to figure out how to get this cabin altitude. Like, I know where the box is. I would like to get some, make it pressurized or something, so I'm not so lightheaded.
And when asked why he stole an aircraft, he related it to his minimum wage.
Minimum wage. We'll chalk it up to that. Maybe that'll grease the gears a little bit with the higher up. Maybe, yeah.
16 left, American 7, Alaska 691.
Damn it, Andrew! People's lives are at stake here.
Now, Rich, don't say stuff like that.
Nah, I told you, I don't want to hear no one. I just want you to whisper sweet nothings into my ear. Hey, you think if I land this successfully, Alaska will give me a job as a pilot?
I think they would give you a job of doing anything if you could pull this off.
Yeah, right. Nah, I'm a white guy. Hey, I want the coordinates of that orca with the mama orca with the baby. I want to go see that guy.
At this stage, Beebo was more than aware of the aircraft's fast diminishing fuel. He knew that he didn't have a great amount of time left before it would run out, and in that moment started reflecting on his actions and his life.
I got a lot of people that care about me, and it's going to disappoint them to hear that I did this. I would like to apologize to each and every one of them. Just a broken guy. Got a few screws loose, I guess. Never really knew it until now. Man, have you been to the Olympics? These guys are gorgeous. Holy smokes.
But that wasn't enough. Beebo wanted to do a barrel roll.
Alright, hey, pilot guy, can this thing do a backflip, you think? I think I'm gonna try to do a barrel roll. And if that goes good, then I'll just go nose down and call it a night.
Well, Rich, before you do that, let's think about this. I got another pilot coming up, Pilot Joel, here in just a minute or two, I hope.
I'm just gonna do this barrel roll real quick.
Well, no need to do that.
I feel like I need to be, what do you think, like 5,000 feet at least to be able to pull this barrel roll off?
Astonishingly, he just about made it, clearing the water by a mere 10 feet with the aircraft, which was never designed to perform any sort of maneuver remotely close to a barrel roll either. Both trailing fighter jets and SeaTac's ATC were clearly surprised.
POI-1 just completed a barrel roll, current altitude 2,000 feet.
Rock 1-2 confirmed he did a barrel roll.
Affirm, he cleared the surface of the water by approximately 10 feet.
But Rock 2 from Rock 1, the POI-1 did a barrel roll and just barely missed hitting the water.
And interestingly, it didn't sound like Beebo expected to actually make it either.
All right, Rich, this is Captain Bill. Congratulations, you did that. Now let's try to land that airplane safely and not hurt anybody on the ground.
All right. Nah, damn it. I don't know, man. I don't know. I don't want to. I was kind of hoping that was going to be it,
99.
And not long after, Richard Russell made his final transmission.
After long, I feel like one of my engines is going out or something.
That would be the last time that anyone would hear from Richard Russell, because only moments later at 8:46 PM, his aircraft would slam into the woodlands of Ketron Island, a sparsely populated island found in Puget Sound. And with his speed, angle, and area of impact, the crash would have very likely killed him instantly. Even if not, the 2-acre fire caused by the blast would have stood in his way instead. Being in a dense woodland in the middle of a remote island, it would take over 40 minutes for first responders to reach Beebo's crash site. And by now, the entire area was either ablaze or charred. FBI concluded that Beebo, who would later become known as Sky King, turned his aircraft's nose down in an act to take his own life. He deliberately picked a remote place to avoid any casualty to other human beings. Shortly before his descent, and while he was still alive, he actually texted his wife to say that he loved her and that she deserved better. And whether she found out about her husband's fate through text messages or through media, it's not actually known. The FBI would also eventually conclude that Beebo, who had acted alone, was not connected to any criminal plot or terrorist ideology. But along with investigations, when family, friends and colleagues were interviewed, there was never really a clear reason why Beebo decided to steal a plane and take his own life. Sure, they did recognise his voice and mannerisms, but his actions didn't fit his personality or his usual demeanour. And another great surprise, not to those who knew of Beebo but to pilots around the world, is what exactly Beebo managed to pull off in a Bombardier Q400. For a man with literally 0 hours of flight experience, to pull off a manoeuvre that usually would break an aircraft apart was miraculous. People just couldn't believe it. Beebo did not have a pilot's license, and neither was he learning to acquire one. Although he did hint to ATC that he learned through playing video games, perhaps Flight Simulator, that's pretty much the only way that he could have learned. Unless, of course, he learned something through Horizon Air.
Good evening. My name is Mike Matthews, a friend of the family. The family has asked me to read this prepared statement. On behalf of the family, we are stunned and heartbroken. It may seem difficult for those watching at home to believe, but Beebo was a warm, compassionate man. It is impossible to encompass who he was in a press release. He was a faithful husband, a loving son, and a good friend. As the voice recordings show, Beebo's intent was not to harm anyone. He was right in saying that there are so many people who have loved him. We'd also like to thank the media for their sensitivity and acknowledging this as the only statement that will be released by the family. And we request that we now be given space to mourn. At this time, the family is moving forward with the difficult task of processing our grief. We appreciate your prayers. Thank you, the family of Beebo Russell.
Over the internet and across the globe, much like Killdozer, Sky King has become somewhat of a folk hero from his actions. You will never have to look too far, probably not even past the comments to this video, to see people celebrating him. It is still not fully known why exactly Beebo decided to steal the aircraft, and we likely will never find out. But our main theory is that this story stems from an abrupt reaction to his depression. A depression caused by the never-ending stresses in a mundane day-to-day life, and the struggle to make ends meet on a minimum wage, something that so many of us experience in our lives. And if we scrape past the surface of this story and look deeper into the questions of why this happened in the first place, some interesting details emerge. I've talked about this in previous cases before, but current-day knowledge on the effects and consequences of the brain structure after head injuries and concussions have occurred is still very limited. But as both time and research simultaneously progress on this subject, almost each and every study seems to correlate concussions with long-term psychological problems around depression, impulsivity, and emotional lability. And in his younger years, Richard was not only a competitive wrestler, but he was also an American football player too. Friends of Richard were able to confirm that he had suffered several concussions while playing sports. And there were also telltale signs of his impulsivity when he was a younger age too. An impulsivity that, along with his depression, may have assisted him in his decisions. Following Sky King's actions, new security screening measures were introduced at SeaTac, which included assessments and services geared towards the mental health of their employees. Although Beebo was able to literally steal an aircraft from one of America's busiest airports, authorities emphasized that there was never any violation of security procedure, not from a corporate, airport, or governmental level. The case was just so bizarre that it was never considered before. And the aircraft, which was worth over $30 million, was paid under the company's insurance policy, with no penalties or deductibles. To this day, if you look hard enough, you can still find pieces of Sky King's Q400 on Ketron Island. While all large pieces of debris have been cleared, small remnants will likely remain here for decades until being picked up. And eventually, in 2019, family and close friends visited the site where Beebo spent his final second on Earth in a tribute to his memory. And so goes the story of Sky King. I'm not really sure what it is about this story, but there's just something in it that makes you smile and really root for him. At least from a spectator's point of view, Beebo is just wholesome. It isn't very often that you find someone who stares death in the face and has some fun instead, dealing with the situation in a kind, calm and comical manner. But what do you think about Sky King? Do you think that he really was the king of the sky? Or do you think that no matter the circumstances, what he did was reckless and thoughtless? And what did you think about the format of this video? I know technically it had nothing to do with traditional true crime coverage, but did you mind? Please share your thoughts in the comments below, and thank you again for watching another video today by Coffeehouse Crime. I'll be back again next week, but until then, look after each other. Goodbye.
I think I'm gonna try to do a barrel roll, and if that goes good, then I'll just go nose down and call it a night. Man, I'm a ground service agent. I don't know what that is.
It evens out in the end.